Broken promises. Elena Mercer adjusted her tortoiseshell glasses and stared at the pregnancy test in her bathroom. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. Her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. After 3 years of marriage to Victor Harlow, one of Boston's most prominent real estate developers, they were finally going to be parents. She placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach, imagining how she would share the news with her husband tonight. The Harlow penthouse overlooked the city skyline, all glass and steel and expensive minimalism, nothing like the cozy, plant-filled spaces Elena had always dreamed of designing. She had compromised her artistic vision as a graphic designer to support Victor's aesthetic and career, taking a backseat role at his company despite her master's degree in architectural design. Tonight would change everything, she thought. Baby would finally make them a real family. Elena prepared Victor's favorite meal, lit candles, and waited. When he finally arrived home after 10 p.m., his cologne mixed with an unfamiliar perfume. She ignored the warning bells in her mind. "I have something to tell you," Elena said, her voice soft with anticipation. Victor loosened his tie, not meeting her eyes. "I have something to tell you, too." The flatness in his voice made her stomach drop. She watched as he poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey before finally looking at her. "Natalie and I have been seeing each other for the past 8 months, he said, referring to his company's glamorous marketing executive. "I've decided it's time to end this marriage." Elena felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "What?" "Victor, I'm pregnant." She expected shock, perhaps reconsideration. Instead, his face hardened. "Are you sure it's mine?" The question struck like a physical blow. In their 3 years together, she had never given him reason to doubt her loyalty. "How? Can you even ask that?" Victor drained his glass. "It doesn't matter. This isn't working for me anymore. Natalie understands my ambitions, my world. You've never fit in." "I gave up everything to fit into your world," Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "And you've been reminding me of that sacrifice ever since," he replied coldly. "I've already spoken to my lawyers. You'll receive a settlement, but the prenup is clear. This apartment, the vacation properties, my company shares, those remain with me." Elena stood frozen as Victor explained the clinical details of their separation. How he'd already moved most of his belongings to Natalie's loft. How the press release announcing their amicable separation was already drafted. How Natalie had connections to elevate his business to national prominence. "What about our baby?" Elena finally managed. Victor hesitated only briefly. "I'm starting a new chapter. I can provide financial support, but I'm not ready to be a father. Not with you." 3 weeks later, Elena moved out of the penthouse into a small apartment across town. The tabloids gleefully covered Victor's new relationship with the sophisticated Natalie Chen, whose family connections in Asian markets promised to expand Harlow developments internationally. Pictures of them at galas and resort openings flooded social media. Nobody paid attention to the quiet, pregnant ex-wife who slipped away with nothing but a modest settlement, her design portfolio, and the growing life inside her. Victor had effortlessly written Elena out of his success story, confident that she would fade into obscurity, while he and Natalie conquered new heights. But as Elena unpacked her drafting supplies in her tiny new home office, the seed of an idea began to take root. She pulled out designs she'd kept hidden for years, innovative, sustainable urban living concepts that Victor had dismissed as impractical and idealistic. Her hand moved to her stomach, where her child grew beneath her heart. "He underestimated us," she whispered to her unborn baby. "That's the last mistake he'll ever make about me." The seed of inspiration. The morning sickness hit Elena hardest at dawn. 4 months pregnant now, she'd developed a routine. Wake with the nausea, sketch. While the tea kettle boiled, then drink ginger tea on her small balcony as the city stirred to life below. These quiet moments became her sanctuary as she mapped out her future. Today's newspaper lay folded on her bistro table, featuring Victor and Natalie at the groundbreaking of Harlow Tower, a luxury high-rise downtown. The caption praised the building's innovative design, a design Elena had conceptualized 2 years ago, though her name appeared nowhere in the article. "That's the last thing he takes from me," she murmured, flipping the paper over. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marco Rivera, her former colleague from architecture school, who now ran a modest environmental consulting firm. "Coffee at Layla's? Got something to discuss," his message read. Elena smiled. Unlike her other professional connections who had evaporated after her divorce, Marco had remained steadfast. At Layla's cafe, Marco was already waiting, his tablet open to sketches that looked familiar. "Remember our graduate thesis?" he asked after they'd exchanged greetings. "The modular, eco-friendly community spaces?" "Of course," Elena replied. Their project had won awards but was deemed too experimental for commercial development. "What about it?" "The Greenfield Foundation is hosting a competition for sustainable urban renewal. Grand prize is a full commission and seed funding." Marco slid the tablet toward her. "I think our old concept with your new innovations could win this." Elena stared at the screen, then at Marco. "You want to partner with me?" "Now? I'm pregnant and technically unemployed." "I want to partner with you because you're the most brilliant designer I know," Marco countered. "And because Harlow Developments just submitted the most soulless, wasteful luxury project I've ever seen for the abandoned Riverside district." A slow smile spread across Elena's face. Riverside had been her passion project at Victor's company, a neglected area with enormous potential for community-centered design. Victor had shelved her proposals, calling them bleeding heart architecture. "When's the deadline?" she asked. 6 weeks, Marco replied. Elena rubbed her growing belly thoughtfully. "My second trimester energy boost couldn't have come at a better time." Within days, Elena converted half her apartment into a studio. She and Marco established Verdant Design Collective, with Elena as lead architect and Marco handling the environmental systems integration. They recruited Imani Washington, a brilliant structural engineer who'd been overlooked at her corporate firm, and Raj Patel, a recent graduate with exceptional 3D modeling skills. What they lacked in resources, they made up for in passion. Elena found herself working with renewed purpose, her pregnancy not a hindrance, but a constant reminder of why sustainable community spaces mattered. She was building a future her child would inherit. "The problem with Victor's developments," Elena explained during one late-night brainstorming session, "is they create beautiful fortresses for the wealthy. We need buildings that breathe with their neighborhoods, that grow and adapt." Her designs incorporated community gardens, affordable housing units integrated seamlessly with market-rate homes, renewable energy systems, and flexible spaces that could evolve with residents' needs. The centerpiece was a revolutionary rainwater collection system that would reduce water consumption by 60% while creating cascading garden features throughout the building. As weeks passed, Elena's body changed alongside their evolving designs. Her expanding belly seemed to mirror the blooming project. The morning a stranger offered her a seat on the subway was the same day their 3D model was finally rendered. Both milestones that brought happy tears to her eyes. Not everything progressed smoothly. Halfway through the competition preparation, Elena received divorce papers from Victor's lawyers with terms that would leave her financially vulnerable after the baby's birth. That same afternoon, a major potential investor declined their meeting request after learning of Elena's connection to Victor. "He's making calls, blocking our access," Marco concluded grimly after their third rejection. Elena sat at her drafting table, one hand on her belly where her baby kicked vigorously. "Then we work with what we have," she said with quiet determination. "Victor believes power comes from exclusion. We'll build something based on inclusion. The night before the submission deadline, the team worked until dawn. Elena felt a profound sense of rightness as she reviewed their final presentation. This wasn't just a building design. It was a philosophy of living that stood in direct opposition to everything Victor represented. As she signed the submission documents, Elena felt her baby kick again. "I think someone approves," she laughed, guiding Imani's hand to feel the A movement. "Future architect in there," Imani smiled. 2 weeks later, while Victor and Natalie graced the cover of Boston Business Monthly, the Greenfield Foundation announced the competition finalists. Verdant Design Collective, a name no one in the industry recognized yet, was among the top 5. Elena pinned the notification letter above her desk, next to her ultrasound picture. "See that?" she whispered to her baby. "That's just the beginning." Foundations rising. The presentation hall of the Greenfield Foundation buzzed with anticipation. Architectural models lined the perimeter, each representing a finalist's vision for the Riverside district. Elena smoothed her emerald dress over her 7-month pregnant belly, trying to calm her nerves. Their model, smaller and less polished than the corporate entries, stood proudly at its designated station. "Harlow's people are here," Marco whispered, nodding toward a cluster of suits across the room. Victor wasn't among them, but Elena recognized his chief architect and several board members. "Good," Elena replied with surprising steadiness. "Let them see what real innovation looks like." When her turn came to present, Elena felt a moment of hesitation as she waddled to the podium. From the corner of her eye, she caught smirks from Victor's team. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and began. "Riverside isn't just an opportunity for development, it's a responsibility," she started. "For too long, architecture has divided communities rather than united them. Verdant's vision isn't about creating monuments to wealth, but foundations for living." As she spoke, Raj activated their interactive display. Unlike the static models of their competitors, theirs came alive, showing how the building would function through seasons, how community spaces would adapt for different uses, how the innovative water systems would create living arteries throughout the structure. "The future of urban living isn't about luxury isolation," Elena continued, unconsciously resting her hand on her belly. "It's about connection, to each other, to nature, to the resources we share. Just as new life requires us to think beyond ourselves, new architecture must serve more than profit margins." The spontaneous reference to her pregnancy wasn't planned, but it resonated through the room. As questions came, Elena answered with the expertise born from years of studies and suppressed ideas. This was the architect she'd always been, finally unleashed. When the judges announced Verdant Design Collective as the winner 3 hours later, the room erupted in applause. Elena stood in stunned silence as Marco hugged her, and Imani burst into tears. They had won not just the commission for Riverside, but the seed funding to establish their firm properly. "Your concept represents exactly the direction sustainable urban development needs to take," the head judge, renowned architect Javier Dominguez, told her. "And frankly, it's refreshing to see a pregnant woman leading innovation in this field. Architecture has too long been dominated by men building for other men." The media coverage was immediate and unexpected. While architectural competitions rarely made mainstream news, the story of an unknown, pregnant architect defeating established firms, including her ex-husband's company, proved irresistible. By evening, Elena's phone was buzzing with interview requests and her email overflowing with congratulatory messages. A profile in Design Forward magazine featured Elena standing proudly beside their model, her pregnancy prominently displayed rather than hidden. The headline read, "Building for the Future, in More Ways Than One." What began as industry coverage soon expanded to broader media. People connected with Elena's story, the woman who refused to disappear after being discarded, who channeled her expertise into creating sustainable communities while preparing to raise a child alone. She became, without intending it, a symbol of resilience. 2 weeks after their win, as Verdant secured office space in a converted warehouse, Elena received a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations! Never thought you had this in you. V." She deleted it without responding. The morning sickness of pregnancy had long passed, but Elena found herself nauseated for different reasons as construction began on Riverside. Managing a major project while preparing for childbirth tested her limits. Some days she led site meetings with her back aching and feet swollen. Other days she approved materials samples between prenatal appointments. "You need to delegate more," Marco insisted after finding her asleep at her desk one evening. "After the baby comes," Elena promised, though they both knew the demands would only increase. What sustained her was watching their design materialize. Where once stood abandoned warehouses, now rose the curved foundations of community spaces. The innovative rainwater system, once just sketches on her apartment wall, now took physical form in copper and recycled glass. 7 weeks before her due date, as Elena supervised the installation of the building's solar array, she noticed Victor's sleek car pull up at the site perimeter. He watched from a distance, not approaching, his expression unreadable behind designer sunglasses. After 15 minutes, he drove away. That same evening, the Boston Herald published an investigation into ethical concerns at several luxury developments, including allegations that Harlow Developments had covered up toxic soil, findings at their new downtown tower. Victor's professional reputation, once untouchable, began showing cracks. Meanwhile, Verdant received 3 new commissions from clients impressed by their Riverside approach. Elena hired 4 more staff members and promoted Imani to partner. The firm that had begun in her tiny apartment now occupied an entire floor of their warehouse building. At her final prenatal appointment, Elena's doctor advised bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy due to high blood pressure. "Your body is telling you to slow down," the doctor cautioned. Elena reluctantly agreed, setting up a workspace in her newly purchased townhouse, modest by her former standards, but chosen for its proximity to a park and excellent school district. From her bed, she continued directing Riverside's progress via video calls, surrounded by material samples and plant catalogs. "You've already built something remarkable," Marco told her during a site update meeting she conducted from her bedroom. "Now you need to rest so you can meet the other project you've been working on." As Elena disconnected the call, she gazed at the framed magazine cover on her wall, her pregnant silhouette against the backdrop of their architectural model. In 7 months, she had risen from abandoned wife to celebrated innovator. In the destruction of her marriage, she had found the seeds of creation. Outside her window, autumn leaves drifted down. The season was changing, and so was she, transforming, from someone who had lived in shadows to a woman building her own light. Empire and Legacy. "Ms. Mercer, the Tokyo investors are on line 1. The sustainability conference needs your keynote confirmation, and your daughter's school called Lily won the science fair." Elena smiled at her assistant's rapid-fire updates as she strode through Verdant's headquarters, now occupying the entire converted warehouse. 3 years had transformed both the company and its founder. At 35, Elena had traded her tortoiseshell glasses for sleek frames, her hesitant posture for confident strides, though she still wore her signature emerald on important days like today. "Tell Tokyo I'll call back in an hour. Confirm the keynote and send Lily flowers at school. I want her to see them before I pick her up," Elena replied, entering the conference room where her executive team waited. The wall of windows overlooked their Riverside development, now a thriving community and internationally acclaimed architectural triumph. What began as a competition win had sparked a revolution in sustainable urban design, with Verdant at its forefront. "Let's begin," Elena said, taking her seat. The Campbell Foundation acquisition? Marco, now Chief Innovation Officer, pulled up the presentation. They're offering $900 million for our technology division with guaranteed implementation in developing nations. The number would have once seemed impossible. Now it represented just one division of Elena's expanding empire. Verdant had diversified beyond architecture into sustainable technologies, community planning consultancy, and an investment arm funding female entrepreneurs in green industries. Their ethics align with ours, Elena noted, studying the proposal. But I want contractual guarantees that our rainwater systems remain affordable for low-income communities. We're not building technology only the wealthy can access. The meeting continued with the practiced efficiency of a team accustomed to balancing profit with purpose. Elena had assembled a leadership team that reflected her values, diverse, innovative, and united by the belief that business success and social responsibility could coexist. After approving the acquisition terms, Elena retreated to her office, a plant-filled space with views of the river. On her desk sat a framed photo of Lily at age 2, sitting atop the riverside playground structure Elena had designed. Beside, it stood an architectural award shaped like a golden seedling, recognizing Verdant as Company of the Year. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel Lawson, the environmental philanthropist she'd been seeing for 6 months. "Dinner tonight?" "I'm cooking. Lily requested mac and cheese." Elena smiled, typing back. "We'll be there by 7. I'm bringing dessert." Their relationship had developed slowly, deliberately. Daniel, a widower with environmental law expertise, understood both her passion for sustainability and the demands of single parenthood. Unlike Victor, he saw her success as something to celebrate rather than compete with. As she reviewed the quarterly reports, Elena's attention caught on a news alert. Harlow Developments faces bankruptcy proceedings. CEO Victor Harlow steps down amid scandal. She clicked the article, reading about the culmination of issues that had plagued Victor's company since the toxic soil cover-up. His marriage to Natalie had ended a year earlier amid rumors of further infidelities. His once celebrated developments now stood as symbols of excess and environmental negligence, the antithesis of everything Verdant represented. Elena felt no satisfaction at Victor's downfall, only a distant recognition that their paths had diverged precisely as they should have. Her reflection was interrupted by her assistant announcing an unexpected visitor. "Mr. Harlow is in reception. He doesn't have an appointment." Elena's pulse quickened. "How does he look?" "Desperate," her assistant replied frankly. After a moment's consideration, Elena nodded. "Send him in, and stay within earshot." Victor entered her office looking diminished, his designer suit still impeccable but hanging on a frame that had lost its arrogance. His eyes widened as he took in the space, the view, the evidence of Elena's success. "Congratulations," he said, his voice lacking its former confidence. "You've built something remarkable." "Thank you," Elena replied evenly. "What brings you here, Victor?" He sank into a chair without invitation. "I need a lifeline. The bankruptcy, the lawsuits. I'm drowning. Your technology division could rehabilitate what's left of my company." Elena studied him, remembering the man who had questioned her child's paternity, who had discarded her when she was most vulnerable. "I'm not interested in saving Harlow Developments," she said finally. "Elena, please," Victor leaned forward. "What we had was a marriage where I made myself smaller to accommodate your ego," she finished. "What you're seeing now is who I always was, Victor. You just never bothered to look." "I've changed," he insisted. "Watching you rise while everything I built crumbled. It's been humbling. I see now what I threw away. Not just a wife, but a visionary." Elena shook her head. "This isn't about revenge. Verdant partners with companies that share our values of sustainability, community, and ethical business practices. Harlow Developments has consistently violated all 3. "What about Lily?" Victor asked, a hint of manipulation entering his voice. "Don't you think she should know her father?" Elena's expression hardened. You surrendered that right when you walked away from my pregnancy. Lily has a birth certificate with no father listed by your choice. She has me, a loving community, and positive male role models who show up consistently. I could take you to court, Victor threatened weakly. You could try, Elena responded, rising from her chair to signal the meeting's end. But you'd lose, just as you've lost everything else, not because I'm powerful now, but because you made your choice 3 years ago, in writing, witnessed by lawyers. Victor stood, desperation evident in his stance. What am I supposed to do? For the first time, Elena felt a flicker of compassion. Start over, with humility. Build something that matters to someone besides yourself. After he left, Elena stood at her window, watching Victor's diminished figure cross the plaza below, a plaza designed with her vision, built by her company, enriching a community that thrived under her stewardship. Her phone chimed with a message from Lily's nanny, sending a photo of her daughter proudly holding her science fair ribbon. Elena's heart swelled at the sight of Lily's gap-toothed smile, so full of confidence and joy. By evening, as Elena helped Lily pack an overnight bag for their dinner at Daniel's, the encounter with Victor felt like a visit from a ghost, a specter from a past life that held no power in the present she had created. Mommy, can we bring my new plant to show Daniel? Lily asked, carefully cradling a seedling she'd grown for her project. Of course, Elena answered, watching her daughter tenderly adjust the soil around the fragile stem. The most important things we build are the ones that keep growing. Full circle 5 years had passed since Victor's desperate visit to Elena's office. On this crisp autumn morning, Verdant's global headquarters sprawled across what was once the abandoned Riverside district, now a thriving eco-community anchoring a revitalized waterfront. Elena, now 40, stood on the rooftop garden addressing 300 employees gathered for the company's 8th anniversary celebration. When we plant a seed, Elena said, gesturing to the urban farm surrounding them, we act on faith. We believe in growth we cannot yet see. She paused, looking out at the faces of her team, many who had been with her from the beginning, others who had joined as Verdant expanded to offices in Singapore, Nairobi, and Copenhagen. 8 years ago, this company was 4 people in a tiny apartment with nothing but determination and a different vision for what cities could be. 8-year-old Lily stood beside her mother, comfortable in the spotlight they occasionally shared. With Elena's keen architectural eye and a compassionate spirit entirely her own, Lily had become Verdant's unofficial ambassador, joining community ribbon cuttings and charming international dignitaries with equal ease. As employees dispersed to enjoy the celebration, Elena's executive assistant approached with a tablet. Final numbers on the United Nations contract. It's official. Verdant's green infrastructure systems will be implemented in 50 developing cities over the next decade. Elena scanned the document, a sense of profound satisfaction settling over her. What began as a small-scale competition design had evolved into a global movement. Verdant's valuation now exceeded $4 billion, but more meaningful were the statistics on lives improved. 300,000 affordable housing units built, 60% reduction in energy consumption across their developments, and 18 formerly polluted waterways restored to health. Mom, can I go see the new butterfly pavilion with Zoe? Lily asked, referring to Daniel's 12-year-old daughter from his first marriage. Of course, but stay within the garden perimeter, Elena answered, watching as Lily raced off, dark braids bouncing against her emerald dress, a miniature version of her mother in both appearance and determined spirit. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. Marco entered, now sporting silver at his temples but still carrying the same enthusiasm that had propelled their partnership from the beginning. There's something you should see, he said, setting a tablet before her. The screen showed a small architectural firm's website, Rio Verde Sustainable Homes. The founder's profile featured a humbled but recognizable Victor Harlow, describing a boutique practice specializing in affordable, eco-friendly housing renovations in struggling neighborhoods. He's been doing this for 3 years, Marco explained. Started small, working with non-profit housing organizations. No publicity, no press releases, just rebuilding. Elena studied the modest portfolio, nothing like the gleaming luxury towers of Victor's past. These were thoughtful renovations of existing structures, preserving historical elements while modernizing energy systems. The testimonials came from elderly residents, single parents, and community organizers, people Victor would once have considered beneath his notice. "He seems to have taken your advice," Marco observed. "Starting over, building something that matters." Elena closed the tablet, a complex emotion washing over her. Not forgiveness exactly, but something adjacent to it. Recognition that people could change when their foundations were completely dismantled. "Good for him," she said simply. Later that night, after the celebration concluded, Elena walked with Lily, Daniel, and Zoe through the illuminated paths of Riverside Park, the heart of her first major project. Community members nodded in recognition as they passed, not with the awe accorded to celebrities, but with the genuine appreciation reserved for neighbors who had improved shared spaces. As they approached the central plaza, Elena noticed a silver-haired man sitting alone on a bench, watching the illuminated fountain that recycled rainwater in an ever-changing display. Victor. His presence wasn't entirely surprising. The park was public, after all, but his solitude struck her. He hadn't come seeking anything, merely observing the vibrant community life unfolding in a space Elena had created. Their eyes met briefly across the plaza. Victor offered a small, respectful nod, acknowledgement without presumption. Elena returned the gesture before continuing with her family, neither accelerating nor changing course. "Who was that?" Lily asked curiously. Elena considered her answer carefully. "Someone I knew a long time ago, someone who helped me discover my own strength, though that wasn't his intention." Daniel squeezed her hand in understanding as they continued. Toward home, not the penthouse of Elena's past or the tiny apartment of her transition, but a thoughtfully designed townhouse where bookshelves overflowed with architectural journals alongside children's stories, where Lily's science experiments shared space with Elena's material samples, where family meals happened around a table built from reclaimed wood salvaged during Riverside's construction. Later, after the girls had gone to bed, Elena stood on her balcony looking out at the city she had helped reshape. The moon reflected on the river that had once been polluted but now teemed with returning wildlife. In the distance, construction cranes marked the sites of future verdant projects, each embodying the philosophy that spaces should nurture rather than isolate, connect rather than divide. Daniel joined her, offering a cup of tea. "Thinking about Victor?" "Thinking about journeys," Elena corrected. "How the worst moments of our lives can become unexpected doorways." She thought about the woman she'd been, the talented designer who had dimmed her own light to accommodate a husband's ego. How the devastation of betrayal had cleared ground for authentic growth. How carrying Lily had taught her to build not just for the present moment, but for generations to come. Victor had sought power through possession and control. Elena had discovered something more profound, the power of creation, of nurturing potential, in people and places others had discarded. Her empire wasn't built on competition but on connection, between communities and environment, between prosperity and purpose. "I never wanted revenge," she reflected. "I just wanted to build something that would last." As midnight approached, Elena received a message from Marco with a news alert. Rio Verde had been selected for a national award recognizing innovation in affordable housing retrofits. Attached was a brief statement from Victor. "This recognition belongs to the communities who trusted us with their homes, True luxury isn't exclusivity, it's creating spaces where dignity and sustainability coexist. Elena smiled, recognizing echoes of her own philosophy. Perhaps this was the most fitting conclusion. Not enemies or reconciled friends, but fellow builders who had found different paths to similar truths. She closed her tablet and turned toward Daniel, toward the home they were creating together, toward the future taking shape through Lily's determined hands and compassionate heart. The seed of betrayal had yielded an unexpected harvest. Not just success or wealth, but a life authentically lived, a legacy of spaces where people could thrive, and the quiet knowledge that the greatest architecture wasn't found in skylines but in the invisible foundations of purpose, love, and resilience. Elena had indeed built something that would outlast her, not just in concrete and steel, but in changed perceptions of what cities could be, what women could achieve, and how brokenness could become the beginning of something beautiful. And that was a design even Victor, from his distant vantage point, could recognize as masterful.